a nice gradation in this green from dark green to light green. So that's done by a background image. The buttons themselves also have a slight gradation going the other way from light gray to, or sorry, dark gray up to lighter gray. So those are both accomplished through background images. Now, if you have your own background images and just want to put them in, what you can do is replace header bg.gif. That's the GIF for the header background. Or if you want to replace the background for your buttons, you can just replace this button bg.gif. And if we take a look at this as thumbnails, the button bg you can see is just a gradated thing from dark gray to light gray, and the header is this green banner there. Now, we could also just remove the background images, and if you like to have solid backgrounds, we can actually go into our CSS file and just replace them. Now, what I want to talk for just a minute about making changes and testing them and things. I'm showing you here the files that that are used in the yes, I always have to check which directory I'm in. I'm showing you the files that are used in the DITA Open Toolkit to build the help. Now, often I find testing is a whole lot faster if I can just make a change, see that change, and then later integrate those changes back to the DITA Open Toolkit. So what I like to do is show. Well, now I have to get there. When we built the help, by the way, it was created in WebHelp out in our samples folder because the hierarchy DITA map that I was building from is right here, and so by default the help was built in a subfolder called WebHelp out. So here's the files that we've built. Here's our hierarchy.html. This is the main file. And here is the XM WebHelp folder in there, and that's where the CSS file resides, or that's where the CSS file is put when things are built. So what I tend to do is go in and modify the CSS file here in our current output, and then when I have things just the way that I want them to look, then I'll copy those changes back over into my DITA Open Toolkit, and then build from there and make sure that everything's going okay. And by the way, I should mention, if you're doing things like that to the DITA Open Toolkit, if you're modifying your files, then, here I am showing the wrong file. If you're modifying your files, what you really want to do is, first off, make a backup copy. If you're going to modify anything here in DITA OT Demo, WebHelp, make a copy of this WebHelp before you start doing anything. So let's go on into webhelp.css and let's look at what we can do here. So so we could remove these images from the CSS file just by finding the right place in the CSS file and changing the CSS. So let's take a look at that. So what I want to do is look for WHEader. You notice here's our URL for our GIF file. And if I just comment this out, and there is a color here set for the background. This is rather a strange string for a color, but this is an off green, and that's the default background. So what we'll see now, but first I have to save my changes. So let me go up and look again, make sure that I'm actually changing the files in the right place. So now when I refresh this page, what we should see is this gradated screen is going to change to a solid color. So I'm pressing refresh now, and there we are. Now we have a solid color there. And I could do the similar thing on the for the buttons, WHEader LI, and notice here is our URL for button images, so I can comment that out. This change isn't going to be quite so noticeable. It's much more subtle. So we can refresh. And now our buttons are pure, just a plain white. So what else can we do? Well, we've shown how you can remove the image, and right now we're using just a basic background color, but we could say, let's just have a let's just add in, I think this is just a nice little lavender, so we can change our background color to a lavender. So let's just do that. Oh, it's actually a little bluer, but that'll do. So we can change our background color. And we can do the same thing for the buttons just by going to WHEader LI in the CSS and changing that. We could also add a logo to our header if we wanted to. And the way we do that is, what I need to do is find my output file. Again, we would actually make this change to the index.html file, but since I just want to check these and do live editing, and I'm doing a demo anyway, so I don't really want to mess up my actual transform. So here we have the hierarchy.html, and I've got a little file here already I can cut and paste from. Saves me typing in the demo. And so I can add here, before the div that contains my buttons, I can add this logo. And so now if we refresh, we've got a logo, but of course everything, it occupies space by itself because there's floating going on. So what we need to do is actually also go into the CSS and modify our layout there so that we actually get a little bit of float in our logo. And I've got that right here because we brought the logo in as a div with a class. I can just cut and paste into our WebHelp CSS file. Make sure I save the change. And now our logo is laying out. Now, of course, everything here isn't necessarily pretty, but my aim, my point here, and we can actually turn off Firebug, my point here is not so much to come up with a pretty modification as more just show you where it is you can go in and make the changes, and then you can go in yourself and make the changes and move things around as you see fit. Let me see. We added the logo. Now, text and tooltips for the buttons. If you notice in here on the page, there's text here on the buttons. This is not an image. This is actual text, and this comes from text in index.html. One thing I need to point out, and Just is aware of this, is that right now it's not fully localizable because this plain text is there. However, it is possible to build JavaScript files that have dynamic text. So if you need to incorporate localized text, you can do it that way. And actually, we have an archived webcast on creating dynamic HTML or dynamic